Hello guys, welcome to So Mighty Solutions. My name is Somnath Mukhopadhyay and today I am going to discuss about one of the very important design patterns called observer pattern. So as I promised in my last video which discussed about the callback mechanism using Java, I told you that there are other design patterns similar to this callback mechanism. One is and out of them one is, and that design pattern is called observer pattern. Okay, and so today I am going to discuss about the observer pattern. Okay, now let me give you a practical scenario why we need an observer pattern. Suppose there is a data in a tabular form in a central repository. Now three people are viewing this data from three different machines. One guy is viewing the data in its tabular form, another guy is viewing the data in his pie chart form, and another guy is probably viewing the data in a bar graph form. Okay, now suppose the data gets changed or data is being updated in the central repository. So unless these three views update themselves with the changed state of the central repository data, their views will be in the inconsistent state, which is not at all desirable, right? So there lies the significance of observer pattern. If we use the observer pattern, then our central repository will be able to notify all of its viewers that my data has been changed or my data has been updated. Please update your views accordingly. So, okay, and then all the viewers will update their state with the changed state of the central repository data. This central repository data in observer pattern is called subject, and all the viewers that were being updated with the changed state of the subject are called observers. So what is the main point? The subject will be in a particular state, so whenever its state changes, then it will notify all of its observers who were observing to the subject state change, and these observers will then update themselves in accordance with the changed state of the subject. Okay, this is the main point of the observer pattern. So now let's implement the observer pattern in Java. Okay, so to implement the observer pattern in Java, we should have, first of all, a two interfaces. We should have one interface is called the observer interface and the other interface is called subject interface. As I told you earlier, that interface is like contract. So that means whoever wants to be observed or whoever wants to notify about its changed state should implement the subject interface, and whoever wants to observe or update themselves with the changed state of the subject should implement the observer interface. Okay, so let's create the two interface first. So I will create two interfaces. One is the subject interface, and finish it off, and then the other is the observer interface. Create new interface, and the other is the observer interface. Okay, these are two interfaces I have created. Now let's add methods to the subject interface. So in the subject interface, it should have a method called attach observer, and which would say take a data as observer, and then it should have another method called detach observer, and again it will take data parameter as observer as a pattern, and then it should have a function called notify observers. Okay, and it should have a function called notify observers. That's it for subject interface. Now let's go to the observer interface. Observer interface should have something like update themselves. It should have a function method which should enable them to update their state with the subject state, void update. And this function, this method, we can have maybe to set the subject of a specific observer. Okay, so this method, these two methods will be sufficient for the observer interface. Now let's define file. Let's do the file save all. Let's now define the concrete subject class, which will basically be basically having some data, and whose data will be observed, or which data will be watched by the concrete observer class. Okay, so let's create two classes. One is the concrete subject, and it should implement subject interface. Finish it off, and then we should have a concrete observer class. We should have a concrete observer class. So concrete observer class, and then it should again interface observer, and then okay, and finish it up. Okay, so these are the two classes, two concrete classes, which will implement one will implement subject interface and the other will implement the observer interface. Okay, now let's go to the concrete subject class. What it will do, concrete subject class naturally will have a list of observers. Okay, so let's do it. Let's have a list of observer, and let's give name observers, new array list. All right, new array list. Now what we'll do, actually we'll simply update this import list, and then we'll import the these array lists as well. Okay, all right, and then as I told you, we should have a private string data which will keep the state of the observer subject, and then we should have a getter setter for this data, and that's it. Okay, now what will the attach observer will do? Attach observer will simply observer dot add an observer. Okay, that's it, and then it will simply remove that observer from itself. Notify observer, which will simply traverse to the list of the observers, and it will take all, it will ask them to update themselves. So what it will do, actually it will simply, so I can do it using the iterator, but I am not doing it because there are many people who won't be able to understand the iterator. I shouldn't assume it, but let us do it in a more simple fashion. So what I will do, in length is equal to observer dot size. All right, and then I will do a for loop, int I is equal to 0, I less than length, and then I plus plus. What it will do, observer is equal to observer dot get I, and then what it will do, actually it is simply ask each observer to update itself, okay. That's it. It will ask everybody to update itself, okay. It will traverse through the list of observers, and it will ask them to update themselves. Then that's all for this concrete subject class. Now let's do the observer class. In the observer class, concrete observer class, what it will do is it will simply have a reference to the concrete subject. It will have a reference to the concrete subject, and then it will have the subject, or rather this dot subject is equal to subject, and is there any problem? So it should be typecasted. I think it should be typecasted concrete subject, okay. This is one thing done. And then in the update function, what it will do, so first of all let's do the save all is done. So what we will do actually in the update function, it will simply get the data, right? So again it should also have the string, private string data, which should get the local copy of the subject data. So get a setter. All right, so what it will do is simply have data, or rather this dot data is equal to it will simply have subject dot get data. And not only that, it will also simply system.out.println what it will print the this dot data, okay. So this is basically printing the this dot data to tell us what the current state of each and every observer, okay. And then so this is everything. File save all is done. So this is everything. Now what we will do, we'll go to the main, we'll create a concrete subject is equal to new concrete subject. It will call a new concrete subject. We'll create a few observer 1 equals new observer, okay. New observer 1 is done. New concrete observer, naturally it has to be new concrete observer. Then observer OBS2 equals new concrete observer. All right, then this is done. Subject should attach observer OBS1, and then it should attach subject should attach observer OBS2. all right, so this it will create, and then what it will do at the same time, OBS1 dot set subject, and it will also have OBS2 dot set subject. So everything is done. So subject will have a list of observers. Similarly, observer will have a reference to the subject, okay. Now what we will do, we will create a state of the subject dot set data. What we will do, let's have a concrete subject class. Suppose the data was initially suppose hello. Okay, suppose it will initially hello. So what we will do, we will change the subject state. We'll change the subject state. So string subject current data equals subject dot get data. Okay, and then suppose we are simply changing the data, and then what we will do actually, this is current data, subject current data was Ctrl V plus simply I have been updated. Subject data has been updated. Subject data has been updated. Okay, and then it will simply update itself to say subject data has been updated. Now once the subject data has been updated, then it should notify the observer, right? So what we will do, subject dot notify observers. Okay, you simply do the notify observers, and then it will, once it is notifying the observer, then it will basically create, the observer will get their state updated. Okay, so previously so it will, observer will basically get the updated state of the subject. Okay, so let's see how it works. So let's observe a pattern. So what we will see actually, because in the as notify observers will call update function of the all the observers attached. So each and every observer in the update function of the concrete observer, what we are doing, we are getting the data from the subject, and we are basically printing that data. So what you will do, get actually in the output, will get two printout having the new data of the subject. Okay, so let's see how it works. Run as application. So hello subject data has been subject data has been updated. So probably let's have it like this. So you can run it, and hello subject data has been updated. Okay, so probably there is some spelling mistake, has been updated. This should be the right thing. So again, subject data has been updated. Okay, so you are getting the point, right? Whenever the subject state changes, its subject data changes its state, subject should notify all the observers that my data has been updated. So please get yourself updated. Okay, so this is all about observer pattern, and hopefully you have enjoyed the session. Thank you for attending the class. Bye.